New head coach of Michigan State football, Mel Tucker.
Huge win. I got to tell you what a first win for Tucker and that new staff at Michigan State.
The whole time in football, I never felt anything like it was in East Lansing. With this program in the Spartan Dogs, a place that gave me my opportunity to be a coach. This is a program that has a rich and storied history and tradition of excellence, diversity. There's very few places like this in America.
So I guess we could start this off with a little bit of a history lesson for everyone that's watching and listening. I think we talk about Black History Month a lot, but not sure everyone really knows kind of its origins. So it actually started in 1970 at Kent State by Black educators and Black students, and 6 years after that was widely recognized across the nation as a holiday, if you will. And now here we are 51 years later at one of the, what I would say, and I think what a lot of people would say is most polarizing times in our country. When you think about Black History Month, especially right now, Coach, what has Black History Month meant to you?
I tell you what, man, that's a great question. And, you know, I've given a lot of thought to that, you know, leading up into this month and in light of all the things that happened, you know, this summer. And Black History Month to me is really a time of reflection in terms of, you know, what have I been taught in my lifetime? What have I learned? And a time of really just looking back and taking a really hard look at myself and asking the question, what is my role as a Black head coach at a Power 5 institution? You know, what is my legacy? What is that going to be? And then, you know, how do we educate how do we do a better job educating our players, you know, our student athletes? How do I do a better job of helping educate my two boys that are 17 and 19? It's a very sobering time for me when I think about what Black History Month has really been in the past. You know, in elementary school or middle school or high school or even in college, it really was not a real emphasis on it at all. There were some, you know, maybe some jokes about it in terms of it's the shortest month of the year.
Right.
And that type of thing, you know, we've all heard that. But there was really no real programming in place. There was really not something that was mainstream. And when I think about the word education, what comes to mind is, if you look up the definition of education, there's nothing in that definition that has the word truth. When you look at knowledge and information, there's nothing in there that says that it has to be true. So it's really a time of, for me, is focusing on what is the truth about Black history in this country. What do I know? What don't I know? And then how much time and effort and investment should be taken at this time in my daily life and in our program to properly and truthfully educate our student athletes about Black history.
You know, you mentioned the word truth, and it doesn't pop up in the definition of education. You also mentioned the legacy that you are hoping to leave as a Black head coach. And here's some truth for you that I think is part of this educational a chapter when it comes to black head coaches in the country at the college ranks. There's only 8 in Power 5, 8 out of 65. That's 12%. You're one of 8. And I know that there's no, it's not necessarily a secret that there is disproportion when it comes to black head coaches. There's only 13 in FBS, 13 out of 130, I believe. So that's, you're looking at 10% there. When you think of being one of 8, 8 of 65, 13 of 130, when you hear those numbers, what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm reminded of it every day, from, older black coaches that have come before me, mentors, people that care about me, people who want me to be successful. Some of the things that I hear on a consistent basis, hey, we need you to be successful. You got to make it. This is important for a lot of reasons. That, black coaches usually don't get a second chance. We got to get it right the first time. And so, with that comes, pressure. And I believe pressure is a privilege, but it's an additional amount of pressure that I would probably not have if I wasn't a black coach. And I have always put a lot of pressure on myself to be the very best that I could be, more than anyone or any situation could put on me from the outside. But to know that there's so many coaches, there's so many, not just college coaches, NFL coaches, high school coaches, middle school coaches, Pop Warner coaches, there's so many coaches that are looking at me and rooting for my success. Is very, is very sobering, and it's very humbling. And I think the reason behind that is that those coaches, those individuals feel like if I'm successful, it could possibly open up doors for them to have opportunities to, be coordinators, to be head coaches, to move up in the ranks. And if I'm not successful, then I think there's a belief that may reduce their opportunities, may reduce their chances of becoming coordinators and head coaches at whatever level that they aspire to be.
When I was growing up, learning about the NFL, learning about sports in general, the Rooney Rule for the NFL was pretty prevalent. It was something that was talked about a lot. It was something that I was taught about. I recall very vividly, as I'm sure you do as well, how, polarizing and profound of a moment it was when Lovie Smith and Tony Dungy met in the Super Bowl. First time 2 black head coaches met in the Super Bowl. But again, here we are, 2021. There's only 3 black head coaches in the NFL. Mike Tomlin with the Steelers, Brian Flores with the Dolphins, and newly hired David Culley in Houston. If you add Robert Saleh, of course, a former graduate assistant here at Michigan State, and Ron Rivera to the mix, that's now 5 minority coaches in all of the NFL. You've spent time, of course, in the NFL as an interim head coach in Jacksonville. Why are we not getting to what the Rooney Rule was supposed to fix, do you think?
I don't think anybody really knows. I don't think anybody really can pinpoint it. I can tell you, what I've heard the reasons are, and owners. What I've been told is that owners tend to hire coaches that they're comfortable with. They tend to hire coaches that they know, and so that's an issue. How many of the prospective head coaches and coordinators in the National Football League, how many of them have good relationship with owners and front office people? They want to have a comfort level with you. in college football, how many search firms, how many athletic directors, how many board of trustees or board of regents and high capacity donors, or know coaches. Black coaches that want to be head coaches, no coordinators that want to be coaches. What is the comfort level there? And so, that's a major reason. And I think the other reason is that there's really no real accountability or any real incentive, to hire black coaches. From what I can see, there's nothing in place that really encourages owners to hire black coaches. And what are the ramifications for owners, colleges and universities when they don't hire minorities? When oftentimes their teams, are majority black players. What happens? At the end of the day when those hires are not made. And there's a difference between being considered and landing an interview and actually getting hired. And so, those are all questions that, I think need to be posed to the individuals who are actually doing the hiring.
We talk a lot about it's not what you know, it's who you know, and I think that goes with anything in life, but especially in this business, as you mentioned, whether it's people in the front office or people that are making hiring decisions, they go with who they know. But if you look at what transpired in the NFL this past season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the Super Bowl, Bruce Arians' staff was incredibly diverse, whether it was having 2 black coaches as coordinators, women in full-time coaching positions on the staff. That makes a huge difference. And they won a Super Bowl with it. We have a very diverse staff here as well within Michigan State football, Michigan State athletics in general. When do you think we'll get to a point where we don't have to have a conversation like this, where it's just the norm for a minority to get an opportunity, whether it's a black coach getting a head coach opportunity, or offensive coordinator position because that's very scarce, or women getting more opportunities in whatever field they want to go into? When do you think we'll get to a point where we don't have to talk about the first to do something or a percentage that's less than 10%, where it's just expected?
Yeah, only time will tell, but based upon the past, it's going to take some time. It's going to take quite a bit of time, and you look at where do the head coaches come from? What positions, do they come from? Are they offensive coaches? Are they defensive coaches? On the offensive side of the ball, typically, you'll see quite a few, coordinators that have a background in coaching quarterbacks and coaching the offensive line. And so, how many black offensive line coaches are there in major college football and college football in general? How many black offensive line coaches, are there in the NFL? How many black quarterback coaches are there, in college and pro? You see a lot of those head coaches coming from those positions. And then, on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker coaches and defensive back coaches, and then you have to ask yourself, do you have to be a coordinator in order to become a head football coach? because a head football coach is a leader and a head football coach is a CEO to a greater degree. You look at the National Football League, there's only 32 teams. There's only 32 offensive coordinators, there's 32 defensive coordinators. Which coaches on those staffs are really actually moving the needle and getting it done with the players? Who do the players listen to? Who do the players respect the most? Who do the players connect with, and who do they trust? And it's not always the coordinators. It's oftentimes it is the position coach, and so those are all things that we need to take a hard look and see if what are the prerequisites that these coaches need to have to become head coaches. What are the athletic directors and the search firms? What are they looking for?
I want to shift gears just a little bit because you were hired at the beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak, pandemic, and then it just went right into what we would consider to be the civil unrest with the murder of George Floyd, really creating this spark in the country. And we had to shift our focus from what we normally do, at least player development wise, from the usual career services and career development training that we do in the summer to race relations, voting rights and voting registration, and as you like to say, communicate, educate, resources, but as it pertained to what was going on in the country. It's also, again, no secret that Michigan State has a rich history when it comes to Black history. And we've been fortunate enough to be joined this year during Black History Month by Gene Washington and Clinton Jones already from the 1966-67 national championship teams that integrated college football. And we'll be joined pretty soon by Jimmy Ray as well. How important has it been for you from really day one of getting here to make sure our players are educated on what went on in these same walls, inside the same walls that they walked through, and also just to know what's going on across the country?
It's very important. It's not just for our Black players, but also for our white players as well. It became a priority, and it's remained a priority for us. To educate our players. And to communicate with them and to provide all types of resources, any type of resources that we could garner to make sure that they understood, civil engagement, that they understood, what implicit bias, that they understood, what was really happening in this country and around the world. So that they could decide, what they wanted to do, where could they plug in, and where could they make a difference? Because, this summer with all of the George Floyd and the civil unrest and the racial injustice and the protests, the players, it was loud and clear. They didn't want just statements released on Twitter or Instagram from coaches or officials, ADs. They wanted to know, what can we do? They wanted to see some action and some sustained action. They wanted to make sure it was a movement and not a moment, not something that would be, in the news, in a cycle, and then be forgotten in 2 weeks or in a month. And so, that was our focus, was to make sure that we put things in place and put programs in place that were sustainable.
I think kind of staying with that, there's definitely been a shift in terms of not just professional athletes using their voice, but now student athletes at the collegiate ranks using their voice to speak up and speak out. Why was it important to you to make sure that our team and our players knew that they were, it was okay for them to use their voice to really speak out on any issues that they felt, passionate about talking about?
Right. I didn't want our players to be afraid. I didn't want them to be scared to speak up. And that's a tall hurdle to clear. Initially because, the shut up and play or shut up and coach mentality that a lot of us have felt in the past, we needed to do away with that. And so it was important for the players to hear it from me that, we had their backs in terms of them having an opinion and, voicing their concerns, and that they were going to be heard, and that we were going to help them, use their platform, amplify their message, and help, educate them so that they could, in a meaningful way, in a powerful way, articulate and communicate, their feelings and their message, communicate and amplify what they wanted to get out, to the fans, to the community, to the folks back home, from their hometowns, and so at first it was kind of slow. It was slow to go. You have a couple players that would speak up in some of our meetings, but as we continued to communicate and we met more and we brought more speakers in and just opened up the dialogue, then I think more players became comfortable having a conversation, and not just the black players but the white players as well, and those guys talking to each other, and really trying to take the judgment out of it, but really just empathize and try to walk in someone else's shoes, and that was something that in most cases our players had never experienced in their entire lives. That type of dialogue, that type of feeling of freedom to be able to, to voice their opinion and to get involved in areas outside of football and outside of their academic pursuits. Really to get involved in this and to weigh in on the social issues and the relative to civil engagement or racial injustice or implicit bias. We really wanted to empower our players.
I watched a movie One Night in Miami a couple weeks ago about a great Regina King directed it, and it was a fictitious recap with historical context of a night in a Miami hotel featuring Muhammad Ali, Sam Cooke, Jim Brown, and Malcolm X. And I took a lot from that movie, again, with the historical context of what each of them was feeling during the height of the civil rights movement in the 60s. You have posters of Muhammad Ali on your office walls. You have figurines as well. Book sits right in the middle of your office, opened up to Ali. When you think about Ali and what you've, I guess, learned from him and his ability to speak out on these social issues during his time, what is it that stood out the most about Muhammad Ali, both in the ring and outside the ring, that's made him such an influence in your life? When
Muhammad Ali was in his prime, I was just a baby, but I can always remember what my dad would tell me about Ali when we would see him fight, see him box, or he actually took me to watch him train one time in Cleveland. And he would tell me that, Ali would always speak up for what he believed. He was more than just a boxer. And as I got older and I learned more about Muhammad Ali, I realized that, yeah, he was much more than just a boxer. He had strong beliefs about race relations and racial equality and justice and war and socioeconomic, status and empowerment of black people. He was vocal about that. And at that time, that was, it was dangerous to say those things and to be just so outspoken. Literally, his life was on the line, on a daily basis. And so I've always respected him for that as much or more so than his ability to box.
Yeah, I want to close us out on this one. We talk about the fact that we are still in a time where there's going to be some firsts for a little while. There's a lot of hurdles that still need to be jumped over. One of those hurdles is there has never been a black head coach that's won a national title in football, Division I football. What would it mean to be the first to do that?
I think it would be very important. I think it would mean a lot. When you're the first at anything, it shows other people that it can be done. If you're the first to run a 4-minute mile, when people didn't think that could be done before, and then it's done, next thing you know, the floodgates open, it becomes normal. And so, I think, that it would be it would be a milestone, and it'd be an achievement. It can be done. Here's a black coach who has won a national championship, and he did it the right way. Why not me? Everyone wants to be associated with a winner. And success leaves clues. And when you have that type of success, people want to know. They want to know what's the secret sauce. People want to know how did you do it? How did you accomplish that? And then that's an opportunity, to teach. That's the opportunity to motivate. That's the opportunity to develop, and to help, further pave the way for black coaches, for minority coaches, to dream, to aspire. And it also may inspire the decision makers, the owners, the general managers, the athletic directors, the search firms, the trustees, the regents. It may move them in a way to take a different type of look, take another look, see black coaches and see minority coaches in a different way because of that type of success of winning a national championship, which is extremely hard to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you joining today. Keep leading, inspiring, and paving the way. And looking forward to hoisting that national title trophy with you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I enjoyed it. Go Green.
Go White.